Welcome back to Militarily Speaking. This is episode 3 of our PCS Survival Series. PCS stands for what, Jodi?
Permanent change of station, Tom. Did you pay attention at episode 1 and 2?
This is about the move itself.
Yes.
I'm Tom McLean here with Jodi Vickery, who I
love,
and Mel Aguto, who I
love.
And today we're in the thick of it. We are in the thick of it. Boxes are packed. The truck is either on its way. Picture this, right, Jodi? Or you're driving it yourself, and money is moving in a lot of different directions at once.
Yes. This episode is probably the most practically useful one for military families who are in the middle of a PCS move right now. We're going to talk about what the government actually pays for and what comes out of your pocket, because the gap between those two things can surprise a lot of people.
Yes, it can, Jodi. And we're going to talk about some of the most common financial mishaps or missteps, if you will, that we see on the financial side of the house. And many of them can be easily avoided with a little advanced knowledge and planning.
So we're going to go to segment 1 of this the move itself. Okay, Jodi? And
yes,
we're going to start with that big question. What does the military actually pay when it comes to a PCS move?
Wouldn't you like to know? The military, I'm telling you, so they will cover transportation of your household goods up to your authorized weight limit. There's so many things to say about that.
Jodi?
Either through a government contracted household goods move or through a PPM incentive payment, which we covered more in depth if you paid attention, Tom, back in episode 2. And I'm sure you did. They also provide a dislocation allowance, or a DLA, which is a one-time payment to help offset cost of setting up a new household. They do provide a per diem, which is really a daily allowance for lodging and meals, because from point A to point B, you got to stop and feed everybody, of course, as well as a mileage reimbursement for driving your personal cars or vehicles to your new duty station.
And let's not forget, too, on OCONUS moves, there's additional coverages for things like shipping your vehicles, temporary lodging. But the key word to all of this is authorized. Every entitlement has a cap and a condition or a form that has to be filled out for you to receive it.
Or all three of those things.
At the same time.
At the same time.
And are the instructions clear enough?
In a certain order.
Yes.
Perhaps.
So this is probably for both of you, because ultimately you'll answer it. What are some of the more common things that fall through the cracks and end up coming out of your own pocket? I think we talked about that too, Jodi, when in our everyday lives, the unexpected expenses that come up. So Jodi, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of things, and some of them seem little, but they do add up, right? So cleaning fees on your old place, pet transportation, which in our house with 5 dogs, Mel, in your house.
Mel's got dogs. I got
pet
dogs.
Transportation, not a cheap event. We did talk about that some in episode 1. Childcare during that moving process. And for anybody that's ever moved, when you show up, you got to put down deposits for utilities in your new place. If the new place you're going to isn't quite ready, you might have storage between when your household goods leave and when you can actually move them into the new home. And really any things that you might need, just general purpose household goods. If they didn't survive the move, sometimes things get broke. I hate to say that, but they do. But you might need to replace them or fill in the gap if they get lost or they're in a box that you haven't yet found.
True statement. And then also meals that potentially go above and beyond what your per diem covers, anything that goes wrong with your vehicle and or moving trailer during the drive. And I'm not speaking from experience.
Right.
And people forget that driving across the country with your family and your pets and a trailer puts wear and tear on that. So again, those are things that ultimately become your responsibility as well.
I guess if you're driving cross country with family, you might need earphones, earplugs, duct tape.
Jodi, I don't have any pet peeves or quirks, do I?
You do.
So like when it says...
That's a different episode.
This is just Tom McLean, because I'm who I am.
Yes.
It says DLA, and that's dislocation allowance, right?
Yes.
Since when did dis become its own word with location?
You're going to have to there's a form you can fill out to file a grievance.
about acronym
About
usage?
military acronyms.
All right.
I want you to spend the rest of the day looking for that form.
There's a website for that. Yeah, there's an app for that too. All right, let's talk about, in this segment, we'll talk about
DLA.
How dislocation allowance, thanks, Jodi, per diem and mileage actually work. So we're going to do a little bit deeper dive on the entitlements And we'll talk about DLA first, dislocation allowance, which is really DA. How do families figure out what they'll receive?
Yes. So DLA, Tom, dislocation allowance, named as such just to annoy you. It's tied to your rank and whether you have dependents. And there are several allowances in the military that follow that pattern. It's calculated based on BAH rates and the amount changes from time to time. So BAH is your basic allowance for housing. It's not meant to really cover the entire move. It's just meant to offset those relocation costs. So think of it as a moving cushion, perhaps not a moving fund. You can look up current DLA rates on the DFAS website and see what you would have in store should you find yourself in a move situation.
And some of just to share too, the biggest misconceptions that we see families treating DLA as it is, as you mentioned, Jodi, a moving budget. And it is not that. It is merely if you are looking to have that cushion, as you said, which is a perfect way to describe it. If you're doing a DIDI move or a PPM, another acronym, and you're counting.
Wait a minute. Pardon me. What's DIDI? What's DIDI again? Don't say it's do it yourself because it would be DIY. Right. Back to the work.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go back to this, but if you're counting on your DLA to cover what the PPM incentive doesn't, you can find yourself short. So things absolutely to be cautious of. So run your budget ahead of time based on your entitlements for preparation.
So Jodi, what about per diem? How does that work in principle and practice?
Yes. So per diem there's not an acronym for it, so you'll be thankful.
PD.
You don't have to argue about it. Per diem is paid per day of authorized travel. There's that authorized word again. The number of authorized travel days is based on how far you have to go. So the government, of course, has a formula. It's roughly 1 day for every 350 miles. So if you're moving 700 miles, Tom, how many days do you get?
Time. Give me a second. 2.
Math is hard. 2 authorized travel days. And the per diem is going to cover your lodging and meals at the set rate. And that's going to vary by the location as well.
But it could get tricky. If you take longer to get there than the authorized travel days, the additional days that you take are on you. And if your actual lodging costs more than the per diem rate, say you're stopping in a city where hotels are more expensive, you end up having to pay the difference.
350 miles in a day, though. I mean, it's like 5 hours, right?
That's not terrible, actually.
No.
Yeah.
It's good work-life balance. What about mileage reimbursement? How does that work, Ms. Vickery?
Yes, you also can get reimbursed for that at the published mileage rate for driving your personal owned vehicle, your POV, as it were, on a PCS move. That rate is set by the IRS and updated periodically. So you'll file for that after the move through your finance office. So make sure that you document your mileage. I know when I travel, sometimes even for work, it's hard to remember to do that, but just jot down your beginning and your ending mileage.
So is POV the acronym for that? Because point of view, right? Which is Academy Bank's thing, different point of view.
I've heard POV for personally owned vehicle.
You really have?
I have.
What kind of
I'm
circles
not just sitting here making up acronyms. I know Mel's got important things to say. Be quiet, Tom.
Okay, so caveat for that. Important notes. If you're doing a DIDI or a PPM move and you're driving a rental truck, the mileage reimbursement for your POV is separate from the PPM incentive. You can receive both, but make sure you're claiming everything you're entitled to. And that is where military financial literacy around PCS training really pays off. Understanding your entitlements isn't just a nice to know, it's worth money. And that is a wonderful thing to hear.
And she used POV too, so it is in fact a correct acronym.
I just don't like DIDI. All right, so segment 3, common financial mistakes. Mel, you mentioned you've seen a lot of financial mistakes over the years. So what's at the top of your list?
One of them is just not filing for entitlements correctly or in time, because we know how important entitlements are. There's deadlines for filing this paperwork, your PPM paperwork, your DLA claim, your mileage, and really missing those deadlines means losing money, and none of us want to lose money at all. So go to your financial office, know your timelines, and or use my PCS app to understand what those dates are and when to file by. Very important.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. And, another thing to keep in mind is make sure that you're getting multiple quotes if you're hiring movers for a PPM move. Sometimes people, maybe you're running short on time, whatever the case may be, but you get one quote, you accept it, and then later on, you figure out that you've overpaid significantly when everybody's sitting around talking about what they paid their moving company. The PPM incentive has a ceiling. We mentioned that a few minutes ago, but that's what the government would have paid. So your personal profit margin, if you want to think about that, is perhaps worth a little legwork to get those extra quotes. And it's directly tied to how little you spend on the actual move itself.
And the financial mistake that military families can at times make is spending the DLA before it arrives, knowing that it's incoming and then pre-spending it, if you will, with the anticipation that that money is going to come in and you start making purchases, buying furniture, household items, all of those things that you're looking forward to doing upon the PCS move. Then the DLA hits and then you've already spent that, put it on a credit card, things of that nature. So highly suggest either delay the purchases until you've received the DLA or absolutely try to keep a buffer in your bank account.
Probably a good time to talk about building a relationship with a banker too, just in case as a fallback, right, Jodi? In case you need some financial help.
That might be advisable.
So let's talk about the housing overlap situation. In the last episode, we talked about planning for the move. And you both mentioned some families basically getting caught paying rent in two places. I think, Jodi, you might have lived through this. Two household expenses.
Well, we did, but not as a result of a PCS move. We made a decision for my husband to be a geographic bachelor and live away. So we did do that. But this was always one of my big fears, is that we'd get stuck sitting on the place that we were in and not be able to get rid of it in time to get ahead of having to pay the rent or the mortgage in the new location. But it is one of the most common for us. For me, it was one of the most anxiety ridden aspects of a PCS move. You can sometimes negotiate your move out date with your current landlord if you're renting. Many landlords, especially if you're in a military town, they're sort of accustomed to that. They might work with military families, are familiar with SCRA, the Service Member Civil Relief Act, which gives you some rights to terminate a lease early if you have proper notice. So really just making sure you know your rights there and take advantage of those.
And I'll jump in to go along with that, Jodi, is that there's been some discussions at policy level, including conversations tied to PCS moves in the process about improving financial protections for families during these transitions. But until policy catches up with the reality on the ground that military families go with, they need to be their own best financial advocates during this time and during the moves.
Yeah, agreed.
The fourth and last installment of these segments is in the managing the move is managing the biggest stress points. All the financial concerns, the difficult conversations, the physical logistics of moving, they're all hard enough. But PCS moves also come with a particular emotional weight. So the biggest stressors, you mentioned that, Jodi, a second ago about stressful environment for you and your families, but how do you manage those stressors?
Yeah, I think one for me is the one I mentioned about not being rid of your current location expenses before you start incurring the new location expenses. But that gap period can be brutal for a lot of different reasons. You know, that stretch between when you wave goodbye to your household goods and they leave your own house and when you can move into your new one. If you're, living out of suitcases, especially if you've got young kiddos and everybody's in a hotel room and temporary lodging, routines are out the window. Kids are kind of going crazy. You're maybe eating takeout for all your meals. Just nothing seems like level and normal and right. But that can be a big stressor. And, I think you just got to see that for what it is as you work your way through it.
We always treated the gap period like it was camping. You have to make the best of it. So not like waiting, it's like camping out. If you go into it expecting full comfort and normalcy, it's not going to happen and you will maybe be miserable. But if you go into it saying this is temporary, it's an adventure, and you just make the best of it, the family adjusts better as well. And pack a first night box. All those things that you're going to need for your first 24 hours in your new place goes in a box that is clearly labeled and it goes with you. So you can easily get your hands on it quickly.
By the way, what goes in a first night box? I might have a sleeve of Oreos.
I'll answer well, you might have Girl Scout cookies.
I would.
And peanut butter patties.
I'd have to PCS during that season, though, unless you freeze them like you do with the Thin Mints.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't stay frozen, though, in a box. I would think, unless your box was a cooler. It's a different issue. So important things, toilet paper, chief among them, perhaps. You're not going to have that in a new empty house or a new empty apartment. Paper towels, basic toiletries. We always, when we travel, if we're going to be traveling more than one day, we call it a go bag. So what are those things that you need to go to bed and wake up in the morning, change of clothes for everybody, medication, phone chargers, which we always forget, snacks, which is near and dear to my heart. And anything else that might give your kiddos comfort, like if they always need to sleep with Mr. Bear or something like that, make sure that you don't put that bear in a box and send it on down the road. And, for me, if you're not staying in a hotel that would have a Keurig or a coffee pot, you should probably prepare for that as well. Or stay near a Starbucks.
Coffee pot, 100%. Yeah.
Yes.
That was always a do not pack. It's going with us. Coffee maker.
Yes. Or get me a Starbucks gift card.
Mel, do you drink as much coffee as Jodi does?
I'm sure I do.
And
the other question is, have you ever been camping?
Yes.
Oh,
I have. Outside PCS moves? Is that what you're asking? Have I been?
Yeah, just like
real deal camping.
Like for a real family outing or something.
Like in the outdoors.
Yes, we grew up camping with my dad.
All right.
Yeah, I did too. We went camping when I was little, and then I asked my children, my daughter in particular, I'm like, so do you feel like you're missing out because we don't camp? And is that an experience that I'm not giving you? And she looked at me in all seriousness. She said, we're hotel people, Mom. We are not camping people. So yeah, she's my child.
Speaking of stress, working with Jodi, what about stress? So from a partner standpoint, right? What's PCS moves can be a strain on that relationship too, but somehow Jodi made it through, so anybody could.
They can. And we even did a Diddy move, so it's a miracle of all miracles. Yeah, and our last big move, I was 8 months pregnant too, so it was just, and I couldn't do anything, I couldn't lift anything, so I just got to stand around and boss everybody around.
Yeah,
so it was fabulous. Highly recommend 8 months pregnant every time you move. No, but
we'd have an overpopulated country then, wouldn't we?
A lot of military dependents running around. So, I think sometimes I'll say the division of labor can become imbalanced. My husband doesn't listen to this podcast.
La, 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 la.
One spouse might manage the logistics, the physical move, while the other one's already off to work, perhaps. I mean, that's legitimate. At the new duty station, maybe they needed to report early. But sometimes that imbalance or that perceived imbalance can cause stress, along with all the things we've already mentioned about financial stress, disruption in the routine. It just can cause tension. So I think instead of just letting it sort of fester and boil over, it's better to just call it what it is and maybe even try to have a little bit of fun with it and intentionally check in with each other and make sure everybody's kind of even keeled.
Jodi, those are great tips. And then also too, let's not forget Military One Source has counseling resources specifically for this as well, which is fantastic. Free counseling for military families, including during PCS transitions. Use it if you need it. As we all know, there's no badge for trying to manage everything alone.
True.
Jodi, let's wrap it up, shall we? You and Mel?
We shall, Tom.
Okay.
There were a lot of practical steps families can do to put themselves in the best possible position during a PCS move. These were the key takeaways that I got. And I really, once Jodi started talking, I stopped listening. But what
Lucky Mel you, says, it's recorded.
Mel says, first, know the difference between what the military covers and what's out of pocket. Build a real budget that accounts for both. Second, understand how DLA, per diem, and mileage work in practice, not just in theory. So file everything on time, calendar-centric activities. Third, avoid the most common financial mistakes like missing those deadlines for filing, spending entitlements before they arrive, and not shopping around on moving costs, as Jodi said earlier. Just get some quotes. Look for the best value for your own profit margin. Fourth, plan for the gap period. Pack a first night box with plenty of Girl Scout cookies. And treat the stress like a family team sport.
Like a combat sport.
Or your war.
Yes, cage match. Exactly. And in episode 4, which is coming up next, we're going to dive into what happens after you land at the new duty station. So the first 30 to 60 days at your new location are really a critical window to get everything set up for your career, your family, your finances. And we're going to talk about what the most experienced military families wish they had done differently. And by experienced military families, I'm going to put Mel out there as our resident expert.
14, something like that. PCS
a few.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, including some things I genuinely wish someone had told me way a long time ago.
14 times ago. Yeah.
Yeah, 14 times ago before our first PCS.
Thank you for being here. Copyright Armed Forces Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. All non-Armed Forces Bank-owned apps, websites, company names, and product names are trademarks or registered trademarks of their respective owners. Their mention does not imply any affiliation with or endorsement by Armed Forces Bank of them or their products and services. They are merely used as examples of the many available apps, companies, and websites that offer similar services. Before using any app or website, you should carefully review the terms of use, data collection, and privacy policy. Apps may have an initial cost or in-application purchase features. This information is general in nature and is not intended to be legal, tax, or financial advice. Although Armed Forces Bank believes this information to be accurate, it cannot ensure that it could change. Statements or opinions of individuals referenced herein
you're in are their own, not Armed Forces Bank. Consult an appropriate professional concerning your specific situation and respective governing bodies for applicable laws, such as IRS.gov for current tax law. Armed Forces Bank, the Armed Forces Bank logo, and the Militarily Speaking logo are registered trademarks of Armed Forces Bank.